Hello and welcome to Segments with Mark and Amber. Segments is a comedy podcast where in each episode, Amber and I choose a topic and we talk about it in a variety of segments. My name is Mark, and with me, as always, is the the Jezebel. No, That's not quite it. The Ruth to my kinsman redeemer.
Okay.
Amber. Does that work? Is there something there?
I think so.
I thought kinsman redeemer is funnier than saying Boaz.
Yeah, I do
Correct?
agree with that. It is funnier than that.
It's me, Mark, and Amber. And the point was those were women in the Bible, and you're a woman, I'm a guy.
Yes.
That's kind of where I was going with that.
Ruth's a good one.
She's a good one.
Subservient, but that's what she was supposed to be.
Yeah.
This is episode 31, and we're talking all about Bible stories.
That's right.
The format of this episode is we are going to discuss our top 5 Bible stories.
Yes, we will clarify that shortly.
And we're going to have a quiz, and it couldn't be more appropriate than having... Oh, dear. And we're going to have a quiz. It's a VeggieTales quiz.
I didn't know where you were going with that.
I don't either.
That is correct. It is going to be.
If you like to talk to tomatoes, you're going to like this quiz.
Oh, good one, Amber.
That's where I should have gone.
So I had a much better. Well, no, not better. I had a high concept quiz that I was planning to run in its stead instead of the VeggieTales quiz, the steaminess meter quiz.
Right.
And it was this great idea that I had where I would give you the name of a book from Audible and maybe give you a short synopsis of that book, and you would tell me where it fell on the steaminess meter from sweet up to simmering, all the way up to OMG.
Yeah. Whoa.
The problem is that you kind of, on one end, you're at this kind of Francine Rivers, Puritans, just,
sure,
kind of
Amish
kind of a thing. And then on the other side, it is just pure erotica.
Oh,
every title and synopsis was inappropriate, and I felt like not, for our family-friendly show.
Yeah.
We'll do that on the Segments After Dark episode.
Okay, for Patreons only.
So it was one of those things that's a good concept, but
right.
in practice did not pan out.
Yeah, we thought it would be good, harmless fun.
Nope, is not.
Okay.
I had to. Anyway, but the VeggieTales quiz is going to be fun too. It's family friendly. And family friendly. It's just a different direction. Mm-hmm. But as always, if you want to contact us or leave some feedback, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at SegmentsCast. Send us a Gmail at segmentscast@gmail.com. And Amber, before we get into the Bible goodness, let's jump into some feedback.
Yeah, so we had some feedback. It was actually logged before our last episode, but we missed it. It was left on our episode page at libsyn.com, and we are very happy to have you leave feedback there. We just forgot to check it. Yeah. It's actually on me. I was collecting the feedback.
Yeah, actually, Amber, this goes all the way back to Bad Movies.
Where
this one was where this one was left.
So I guess that's on you.
It's on me.
So
we are one.
One of the many Jills that's friend of the show. Friend of the show, Jill.
Okay. I'm not editing that.
Okay. She said, I loved this so much. This is our Bad Movie episode. She said, Amber recommended Schitt's Creek.
Beep.
And I finished all 3 seasons in a week. Yay, go Jill. My favorite So Bad It's Good movie is Cry Baby. That's Johnny Depp. I have not seen that. Also, Wicker Man was good until the end and it fell apart. Wicker Man was one of them that was suggested when I was Googling movies so bad they're good. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I do believe it fell apart at the end. But lastly, she really wants to see Sharknado now.
Again, we don't recommend that you start with the final one.
No. You've got to start at the beginning.
Start at the beginning. What? Yeah. You're in. You got to be in for the whole thing. It's just six episodes, just about 12 hours of your life that you have to dedicate to Sharknado. On the talk of Schitt's Creek, season 4 just came out on Netflix. We've already watched episode 1. Love that cast. Love those people.
Off like the day after season 3 ended.
Yeah.
Just same goodness.
It's a real hoot. Friend of the show, Susan, said she thoroughly enjoyed listening. Love the laughs, Amber.
So at first I was like, oh, she thinks I'm funny, but I think she liked me laughing.
A lot of people
'Cause we're
like
both
your
funny.
laughing, which is interesting.
If I'm laughing, it's because you're funny.
Right. Well, I don't know
Or
if that's
myself.
true. You often laugh at yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that people find your laugh
Interesting.
funny. They love it. People love your
That
laugh.
is nice.
It's like a musical niceness.
Aw.
Is that a thing? Is there something there?
Can I get a shirt with that? Musical niceness.
Anywho, all right. Laura also left some feedback about restaurants. She says that she does order the same menu item at each place she goes to.
We were wondering if that was just us or if other people do that as well.
Yeah. Amber, as you know, we went to
Yes.
one of your very favorite restaurants in the world, Applebee's.
America.
We left church yesterday, and Amber said, "I'll meet you at the B's and the 3," or something like that. "I'll meet you at B's and the 3s," or something. And I was like, "What's she talking about?" She meant Applebee's and Three Rivers.
Yeah, I did.
We had a real hoot, and I ordered, what was it called? Brisket tacos or something like that? Barbecue brisket tacos.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I just decided
That
to.
was something new.
It was something new, and it was fantastic.
It's rare, I think. Otherwise, we'd probably do it more, that you order something new and you really like it.
That's true.
I got the standby chicken fajita roll-up. It was fantastic. It was quite a bit spicier than I'm used to. I think they had some legitimate jalapenos in there. Pico de Gallo up there in Three Rivers.
Yeah, it was spicy. And we had a wonderful waitress.
Yeah, my cousin Emily.
And so that was fun. It was a fun little trip there to Applebee's. So.
Friend of the show, Barb, said our restaurant episode made her so hungry she had to go to Bilbo's for some breadsticks. Although she did not get the cheesy ones.
Well,
I guess you take after
maybe
her.
that's right. Yeah, that's where I get it from.
And she got the dill dip, and it was wonderful.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, there you go. And now finally we have a little bit of feedback from last episode's super fight. You may recall that it was a fight between, let me try to get this right, a lucha libre on Battle Cat with a prehensile tail.
Right.
Versus Mike Tyson that is 3 stories tall.
With dynamite.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He also had dynamite. And while I was pulling for my friend Mike Tyson the whole time, I must admit that Laura gave some pretty compelling argument here. Amber, do you want to read that argument?
I do. It was amazing. So she said she picked the lucha libre because of the Wildcat, which is Battle Cat.
Battle Cat.
The cat will claw its way up the legs of tall Tyson, probably from behind. He will alternate legs as needed to avoid powerful punches. I can totally see that. He's a Springer.
Yeah.
He will
Spaniel.
He will also use his sharp fangs to distract, while the prehensile tail whips around, causing more pain. Soft tissue on the way up will be an easy target. Steaminess meter.
Yeah.
Dynamite is only useful to Tyson when the enemy's far away. I didn't even think of that when we were making our arguments.
That's really good. That's really good.
Not when it's clawing and chewing at your body. He can't activate the dynamite to get us off there. My vote is for Lucha Libre. Teeth and claws overcome. Forget about biting an ear.
Yeah. Forget about biting an ear. I like that Battle Cat's sharp fangs are just a distraction. Like to me, you're like that. That's it. Like that's the whole.
Well, he's a big dude, Tyson.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't think one sharp fang can take him down.
Yeah, and you got
It'd be real annoying to have that knitting up your leg.
knitting up your leg. And Brian also said the luchador would never give up, no matter the odds. He would persevere for the glory of Mexico.
Wow.
And then he put a very nice picture of some lucha libres on there. And Amber, the reality is that the lucha libres dominated in the poll as well.
Yeah, 69% said Lucha Libre would win. I think that's all thanks to Laura's.
Yeah, it was. I
argument.
was even swayed.
Yeah.
So
It was very good.
So
I also, if anybody didn't get a chance to check it out, visit the segments page and check out the clip art that I fashioned.
Amber, that was fantastic.
A kind of a funnily long amount of time.
How much
on
time?
that clip art? A funnily long amount.
Started big and got smaller at the bottom.
Yes.
Funnel.
It funneled right down to perfection. But it really helps you imagine what that fight would be like.
Yes. Segment 1. Favorite Bible stories. Amber, let us kind of clarify what we mean by favorite Bible stories.
As we do. When we have our top fives, we always have a little clarification.
And so I don't want to say that these are my favorite Bible stories.
Is it especially tricky for you since you're in Bible school?
I mean, there's a lot of stories out there. And so I think these could be some of my favorites, and they might have risen to the top 5, but they're definitely the top 5 ones that I thought of as I was preparing this list.
That's a definite. Mm-hmm. I would say I picked stories that maybe I first heard as a kid and just kind of really made me think, have resonated with me, and just kind of like I admired or I was fascinated by them for various reasons.
I guess that's the same thing for me. I feel like I'm disappointing in letting the audience down by saying this is not my top 5. This is just a list of 5. And so maybe I should
somehow they won out over the other stories.
They did win out in my brain. What floated to the top of my brain.
I feel like that's what counts.
Yeah, okay. So
other days they might be different, but today they're right there at the top.
Amber, who's going first? Is it me or is it you? You talk first, I talk first.
I don't know.
You go first.
Okay. My number 5 favorite Bible story is King Solomon and the Babies.
Oh, good one.
So this one, I mean, I feel like my jaw had to hit the floor when I first heard this as a child. Because the story is Solomon was gifted with wisdom, and this is a demonstration of one of the wise things that he did. Mm-hmm. So he had to sit on the judgment seat, and people would come to them with their problems. Well, these 2 ladies who apparently lived in the same place, shared the same bed, both had babies the same age. Mm-hmm. One of them rolled over on their baby in their sleep, and it died. And that was horrifying to me. I don't think it ever occurred to me that could happen. I for sure thought about it every time I went to sleep when one of our babies was in the bed.
Wow.
But that's horrible. That's a horrible situation. The thing that happened was that the one mom, anyway, both moms were claiming the live baby. The one whose baby died apparently just wanted a baby. Didn't matter which one. She wanted to take her neighbor's baby. And so they both went to Solomon saying that the live baby was theirs and the dead baby was not. So what would you do in that situation? It seemed horrible to me. I felt so bad for both moms. I felt bad for the mom who lost her baby. I felt bad for the mom who still had a baby that had to fight for it, and she shouldn't have to. I had a lot of questions about, can't you tell babies apart? Like, what if I can't tell my baby apart from somebody else's?
Very traumatic.
So Solomon, in all of his wisdom, said, bring me a sword. I'll cut the baby in half, and you can each have a half. Which is horrible. That's when my jaw hit the floor. Like, that's a terrible thing to say. Why in the world would you say that? He's a terrible king. Where did all this come from? And then immediately the baby's biological mom spoke up and said, no, she can have the baby. Mm-hmm. You don't cut it in half. And then Solomon knew which mom actually loved the baby.
There you go.
Whose baby it was.
Yeah. And so we don't need to do that now. We have things like Jerry Springer, we have DNA tests, and we have ways to find things out without cutting babies in half. So, do you think Jerry Springer is the Solomon of our time? Interesting.
I never thought of that. I mean, he is very wise. He's pretty rich. I think he's had many wives. Okay.
Good. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's your number? Oh, my number 5, Solomon and the Babies.
My number 5 is a little story from 2 Kings 2. And it is this story where Elisha is walking through town and a bunch of kids come out, and the NIV says they jeered at him.
Oh, no.
Saying, get out of here, Baldy.
Oh, no.
Get out of here, Baldy. It repeats it in the text.
Really?
So he turned around. This is 2 Kings 2, verse 24. He turned around, looked at them, and called down a curse on them in the name of the Lord. Then 2 bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of the boys. And he went on to Mount Carmel, and from there returned to Samaria.
The Bible's so weird.
It is the craziest thing.
Oh my gosh!
Like, what do you? I don't know what to do with that story.
Wow.
I've never preached that story. Maybe I should.
Oh my
That'd
goodness.
be very interesting. I bet there's some good stuff there.
Wow.
But what it says, right, is you don't make fun of a bald man.
That is
Especially
what it says.
a bald man who is a prophet of Yahweh.
Yeah.
And so I just love that. It said, get out of here, Baldy. They came out. These 42, a gang, really.
I mean, that's a big gang.
It's a big gang.
They didn't have respect for the man of the Lord. The opposite of that.
It was the opposite of that.
It
And
was probably not in like a lovingly joking way.
yeah.
I have a lot of empathy for kids, and I think that kids make a lot of silly decisions that as adults they probably wouldn't make, and these guys were punished for it pretty severely.
Well, that was, I think, one of the difficulties. When we were raising up our kids and we were, talking about parenting styles and how do we discipline our kids. And I bought that bear. And I was surprised at your reaction. So,
I could see that it was biblical, but...
So, anyway, so we had to sell the bear, and our kids have never been mauled by it.
Yeah, we just keep giving them another chance.
My number 5, 2 Kings 2, Elisha is jeered.
Wow, that's intense. All right. Well, I don't have a reference for mine, but I bet the story's in the Kings around there somewhere. No, it's probably in Samuel. My number 4 is David hiding from Saul.
David hiding from Saul.
So David and Saul had a tumultuous relationship. Saul was the first king of Israel. David was the second. Saul, I don't think, liked that his line was not going to continue. What was interesting when I was doing my research is that Saul, he was going fine. He was going to continue. I think his lineage was going to continue on, but he wanted to do a sacrifice before a battle to have the Lord's favor, and Samuel was taking his time, so Saul did the sacrifice without Samuel, and that was not a good thing to do. He needed to be patient, wait on the Lord's timing. That'll preach. But as Samuel was leaving, he cursed Saul and said, "You're not going to be your line won't continue to be the king." Samuel's leaving. Saul reaches out and grabs Samuel's robe and rips off a piece. And Samuel says, "Just as that happened, the kingdom will be ripped from your hands."
Whoa.
Then years go by. The people like David better than Saul. Saul's jealous. David wins against Goliath. David does really good in all these battles, so Saul's out to get him and chases him around, and they're kind of hiding in these caves in the mountains, and at one point in the night, David sneaks up to where Saul's sleeping and cuts off a piece of his robe. I mean, look at that.
Go.
That's prophecy boom come to life.
Prophecy boom.
Prophecy boom. So then the next morning when Saul wakes up, I think I must have had a great Sunday school teacher that kind of acted this out for us. David's kind of standing, a mountain away, a little safe distance going, "Yoo-hoo, Saul, look at this. I was in your cave last night and I cut this piece of cloth off. I could have killed you, but I didn't. Can we please stop this madness?"
While you were urinating in the cave. Did you mention that part?
I thought he was sleeping.
No, well, there's 2 times. There's 2 times he sneaks up on him.
One time he steals a pitcher.
Yeah.
One time he cuts the cloak. It'd be tough to cut the cloak while he's urinating.
Oh, no.
Maybe he did.
No,
Anyway.
now. I'm sure Aaron will send something real fast. And
Saul looks
feedback
down.
about that.
Yeah. Please do, Aaron. Realizes his cloak was cut. He had to have remembered that prophecy about Samuel. I don't feel like I ever tied that together in my mind before, but David is the one snatching his kingdom away from him. So they did call a truce for a little while. Relationship continued to be tumultuous.
Yeah, another situation where a little Jerry Springer action would have been helpful. You get Samuel sitting up there.
Yeah.
You have David sitting up there, and then you go, and guess what, guys? We have him here. Come on out, Saul. And they come out, and it's this big, and they're kind of, up in each other's grills. Mm-hmm. But I think Jerry could have talked him down.
I think he could have, or maybe like a Judge Judy situation. God promised me the throne. Yeah, but you messed up, didn't you? So I just think David in this situation is like the perfect movie hero, where you just kind of want him to be like the sneaky, better than you guy that comes in, lords it in your face. So I liked his cockiness there.
I love that.
That was a fun story. So my number 4 Bible story: David hiding from Saul.
Awesome. My number 4 is from the New Testament, Amber, from the letters of Paul. So Paul writes this letter to Timothy, and he's put Timothy in charge of the church in Ephesus. And Timothy apparently is a relatively young guy, and in 4:12, Paul writes this. He says, "Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity." Well, this one's not going to be funny. FYI.
I was waiting.
No, yeah. And so what I like about this one is that obviously, Timothy here specifically is getting looked down on because of his youth. But really, in the context, I think we can take from it that don't let people look down at you for whatever it is, your lack of education or your lack of this thing or your perceived lack of whatever it is, however we might see ourselves as less than other people. And Paul, it says, you've got a calling. It was prophesied to you. Hold on to that thing. Be bold and do what I've called you to. I trust you that you can do it. And that has always, as a pastor and a leader in the church, and has always been an encouragement to me. And I actually taught on this passage when I was in Mexico a couple months ago. And so I really dug into it. And man, it was so encouraging to me just to remember, like, hey, there's some stuff that I'm like, man, I wish I was better at this, or I could do this thing, or I compare myself to this person or whatever. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. God has called me to this, and he has given me everything I need to succeed. And it's not me anyway, it's him. And so I can just be bold and do what he's called me to do. So that is my number 4.
All right. I think that's a Bible story.
It's a Bible story.
It's written.
The whole thing's a story.
Mm-hmm. His story. That's a good one. That's a good word too.
Yeah. So every eye closed, every hand raised. No, that's not how it goes. Every eye closed, every head bowed.
There we go.
That's how you do it. Mm-hmm, anyway, so there you go, Amber. Be encouraged.
That's a good one.
1 Timothy 4.
All right. Well, my number 3 is kind of an encouraging one as well. It is
finally
Gideon. Gideon testing God is how I worded it. So Gideon was called in the time of the judges to lead the Israelites into battle. Mm-hmm. And you can correct me if I have any facts wrong. In fact, I might get the order of the story wrong with the essences there. Gideon didn't believe that he could be called because he didn't feel like he had enough. Paul hadn't written that letter yet. He didn't know that he could be used. He felt weak. He hid from God in the wine presses or whatever, and he needed to have some more proof that God really was going to use him, which I can identify with because that's a common feeling. So he had a fleece, and he put it outside. In the morning you're supposed to get dew on things, and he asked that the fleece would be dry and the ground around it would have dew on it, and that would be like a sign from God that, yes, he is supposed to lead the Israelites. So sure enough, in the morning, the ground was wet, the fleece was dry. He still didn't believe it, which I could see that too. I'm like, oh, it's kind of absorbent, whatever. Maybe the sun dried it first, Maybe a sheep laid on it in the middle of the night, kept it dry. I don't know. So he needed another night of testing, and he said, this time I want the fleece to be wet and the ground to be dry, and that's a lot harder. I'm pretty sure that is the order he did it in. Mm-hmm. So sure enough, next day, boom, that was the case.
Yeah, that is a crazy story.
It is crazy, and I don't think that we're called to test God.
No,
this isn't
definitely not.
No,
yeah.
This is an example of a time that it worked out, but it gives us faith that we just need to listen and do without having to test. So God ended up using Gideon, but he used him in this crazy way where a whole bunch of guys said, okay, sure, we'll fight with you, Gideon. And then God said, no, that's too much. Mm-hmm. He wanted it to be a victory that was clearly a God thing and not just a man thing. So can you imagine, here's a reluctant Gideon, doesn't even know if he's supposed to do this. And then God takes away a lot of his soldiers, brings them down to the creek. Whoever drank with their water in their hand so they could kind of look around, they got to stay. Whoever put their head straight in the water had to go home. So he ends up having just a small army, surrounds an entire enemy camp. They all have a pitcher, a torch, and a horn. And their torch is hiding inside their pitcher. They surround the camp in the dark while everybody's sleeping, and then all at once they break their pitchers, light their torches, and sound their horns. And the enemy is so sure that they're surrounded by thousands of Israelites, soldiers, that they panic and kill themselves. Yeah. So it worked out. It worked out for Gideon. Yeah. And God did it, not him. So right. God can help us when we think we don't have enough.
That's right. Yeah, we're so good.
Number 3, Gideon testing God.
Awesome. All right. Well, my number 3, Amber, is back to the book of 2 Kings. All right. And this time with Elisha. Was it Elisha last time?
Yes.
Elisha both times. I guess I love Elisha.
You love Elisha. You guys...
So these guys,
have a bond.
me and Elisha, we're old baldies. And we both used bears in ways that we're not proud of at this point.
Yeah, did he ever regret that? Or was he just like, yes?
Doesn't. Well, I would imagine he's pretty happy with it. So there, Elisha and a company of prophets are out, and they go down to the Jordan, and he says here, the one of them said, "Won't you come with your servants?" And Elisha said, "Yeah, I'll come with you." And he went with them, and they went down to the Jordan. They began to cut down some trees. And one of them was cutting down a tree. His iron axe head fell into the water. And he says, "Oh, no, I borrowed that axe head." And so Elisha said, "Where did it fall?" And he showed him the place. Elisha cuts a stick and threw it there and made the iron float. And then verse 7, he says, "Lift it out." Then the man reached out his hand and took it.
Well, so it must have been very deep water. Otherwise, the man could have just got it anyway, murky, or dirty water.
Yeah. And so it's just, I guess, just another one of those like, huh?
Yeah.
Like maybe I don't know what the takeaway is. Maybe God cares about little things.
Oh, that's a good one.
He's supernatural.
Yeah.
But whatever. It's just this beautiful, like, I don't know. I just like that God, used Elisha in this way, and this thing that to us would be like, well, whatever, it's a bummer. You lost that borrowed axe head. It's going to be kind of an awkward conversation with Ted in the village or whatever. But, it happens. But, there it is. It just
goes to show Elisha didn't say, I can send a bear over to Ted and he won't care about the axe head anymore.
You got two choices. I can do the bear thing or I can do the axe head floating thing. Well, Ted owes me like 10 denarii, so I guess...
Oh, no. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I forgot about that story.
Yeah, axe head floating. That's my number 3.
Axe head floating. That's everyone's number 3. All right, my number 2 favorite Bible story is the story of Rachel and Leah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not talking about the Dembskis.
Good one.
Hey there, Dembskis. I'm talking about the biblical Rachel and Leah. Mm-hmm. So this is Jacob. Mm-hmm. Jacob needed a wife. He needed to get away from Esau. Esau wanted to kill him. That was his twin. Mm-hmm. So he went to his mother's brother, I think his uncle's house, Uncle Laban.
Mm-hmm. Uncle Laban.
For 2 reasons, the Bible says, to get away from Esau and to look for a wife. So he gets there, and Laban has 2 daughters, Rachel and Leah, and Jacob really likes Rachel. Mm-hmm. He wants to marry Rachel. Laban says, "That's fine, but you've got to work for me for 7 years. Mm-hmm. And this is young Amber's heart going, what? 7 years? That's so long to wait. So Jacob worked for him for 7 years to wait to marry Rachel. I really want to know how old they were when all this started, but... imagine every day he's working. 7 years is so long.
It's a long time.
He finally gets to the wedding day. He finally gets what he's been working for. On the day of the wedding, Laban switches daughters and tricks him and has him marry Leah instead of Rachel. So I always picture this like actual traditional wedding, which I'm sure is different, but like a really thick veil, and he doesn't know who it is until after they've said their vows, and he lifts the veil to kiss her, and it's Leah.
Yeah, that story makes no sense.
It really doesn't.
Like, in what world would you actually be? Or I think it's not just at the wedding. I think it's like
it says on the wedding night that he switched.
Wedding night, so they're kind of
girls.
He knew after he'd known her in the biblical sense,
which really leaves a lot of questions. But anyway, Laban's like, yeah, well, traditionally the older sister is supposed to get married first, so we just went ahead and had you marry Leah. And then he said, you can still marry Rachel as well, because I don't know, these are Bible times. They had more than one wife, but you have to work for me another 7 years. I would have left if I was Jacob, but he didn't, and that's good as part of God's big plan.
But it says, right, that the 7 years went by super quick for him because he was so excited about marrying Rachel, right?
The second 7 years? I don't know. I suppose.
So, yeah, that is a mind-boggler.
He did get to marry Rachel, and then she had a lot of trouble conceiving. She had a rough time. Imagine her. Yeah. She also had to wait 14 years, and her sister got to marry him. And
yeah, there's a lot of trouble in that whole family system. And it's really another, just a real Jerry Springer time. We really...
Talk about needing some DNA tests with all of those children. We've got our handmaids. We've got Bippa and Dorsal or whatever their handmaids' names were.
Bippa, come on out here.
Oh, no. So, yeah, I couldn't believe, for one thing, he had to work 7 years, and then I couldn't believe that. I mean, if you put that in a soap opera or a nighttime drama on television, nobody would believe they switched the brides. That just is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it happened in the Bible.
Yeah.
So,
crazy.
the Bible is a bunch of fun stories.
It is, absolutely.
So, number 2, Rachel and Leah.
All right. Good one, Amber. My number 2 is from 1 Samuel 17. I can't read the whole story. It is David and Goliath.
Would you please read the whole story?
It's Bible time. So I just love it. It's based on a Survivor season where Jeff Probst had these really strong team versus a weaker team, and who's going to win?
The Philistines saw that.
And they
like,
said,
we know how we're going to win.
We should be the strong guys. I thought that joke would go somewhere. It didn't.
I
anyway,
laughed.
yeah, well.
Yeah, well.
So David and Goliath is just a great story, right? Everybody's rooting for the underdog, and here's little David out there with his slingshot coming up against the big, tall Goliath giant and his armor bearer. So it was really 2 against 1.
Whoa.
And as we all know, David used his little slingshot and knocked Goliath right in the head. And then the coolest part, right? He runs up to him, pulls out this giant sword, and cuts his head right off.
Because I don't know if he was totally dead. He might have been dead before he cut his head off.
know.
But after his head
He
was
was
cut off, he
definitely
was
dead.
for sure dead.
For sure.
I think it's interesting. For a while, he just taunted everybody, Goliath, every night or every day or whatever. Who will fight me?
Yeah.
Send out your
Who
best
will fight
fighter.
me?
Nobody else would do it.
But David did.
David
Yeah, there's
did
a lot
it.
of good stuff in that Bible story, but it's a great one that we can all
All of us
use.
feel like David.
We
from
all
time
feel
to
like
time.
David sometimes. Good one. Yeah, so my number 2, David and Goliath.
It's fantastic. My number 1 favorite Bible story, I'm afraid it's going to be the same as yours.
It is not.
Is yours another sermon from Paul?
It is also is not. No.
It's John seeing the beast of Revelation. Okay.
This is John Cena.
Okay. My number 1 favorite Bible story, Joseph and his brothers.
Oh, that is a great one.
So I'm picking the Joseph story. This is an amazing story. I asked Mark if we can have a saga for our story or if we need to just pick an excerpt of a saga. So Joseph's story is a saga, and it's amazing from start to finish. You can watch it in the Prince of Egypt. No, it's kind of the Moses story. Anyway, Joseph's story.
Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor
There you go.
Dreamcoat.
There you go. That's what it's called. He is kidnapped, or he's sold. He's sold to some slaves. His brothers sell him to slaves. He goes to Egypt. He's there for a very long time, and he ends up getting some leadership roles in Egypt. He takes over, organizes. He has some dreams. This is all part of the cool story. He has organizes this food supply to support the people in the middle of a famine. So now he's in charge of things in Egypt, and he's giving out food to people who need it. And his brothers have to come from their land into Egypt to request food from this servant who ends up being their brother, but they don't even recognize him because they assume he's dead, and they would never expect him to be in charge of anything in Egypt. So he's able to watch his brothers, it feels like a revenge story, but he was very gracious. But it just seems like, how amazing would that be to just see them and know that he survived despite their best efforts to ruin him. Yeah. So they come and they request food or grain from him, and he gives them grain. He doesn't tell them who he is, but he hides his special golden cup in the sack of the youngest brother. Or maybe he makes the brothers come back first. He says, I don't believe that you're not spies. I don't believe there's really 12 of you. So you all have to come back.
He kept Simeon
he kept
in jail.
Simeon. So then you have to come back because he really wanted to see Benjamin, because Benjamin was his only straight biological brother that Bizpa didn't have. She was the handmaid. It's tied into the previous story. Sorry for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about. So he hides his golden cup in Benjamin's sack and sends them on their way. So this time they've seen him twice and they still don't know who he is, and they are scared that he's going to kill Benjamin because it seems like Benjamin stole his cup, even though he didn't. And at that point, he finally confesses who he is to them and says, hey, I'm the brother that you sold into slavery all these years ago, and it ended up working out for good, and God has used me. And his dad's able to come, and he's able to see him before he dies, and it ends up being a kind of a cool redemption story. But I like the way he did it.
Yeah.
He didn't just go, guys, remember me?
That's us.
He messed with them a little bit.
Yeah, as you would.
Oh, yeah. As you would. So my number one favorite story is Joseph and his brothers.
That is awesome. Okay, well, Amber, here it is. My number one, also from the New Testament. At the end of the gospel stories, as you know, Jesus ended up getting crucified and then coming back to life 3 days later.
Spoiler alert.
In the midst of that story, Peter says, "I'm never going to turn my back on you, Jesus." And he says, right, this very night before the rooster crows 3 times, you will deny me.
Yes.
And Peter's like, no, that's crazy. And ends up, obviously, it happens. He denies Jesus 3 times. He looks and makes eye contact with Jesus and runs out shamed before Jesus goes through the whole crucifixion. Well, after Jesus comes back in John 21, there's this amazing passage about the restoration of Peter. And so Peter denied Jesus 3 times. And so 3 times Jesus says, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me more than these? Yes. Jesus says, feed my lambs. Again, Jesus says, do you love me? Peter says, yes. And again, he says, Peter, do you love me? So 3 times asking him these questions. And ultimately just this statement of, you know what? I forgive you. You're back in. I'm going to continue to use you. And it's amazing, right? That as much as we fall short, as much as we deny and do stupid things, God, when we repent, when we come back to him, he is willing to forgive us and welcome us back in and just back onto Daddy's lap. And it's so amazing. And
it gives you chills.
Yeah, and so that's for always, and we're always just human. And I am so grateful for that story,
Absolutely.
of that restoration, because I know that I've been restored as well. And so there you go. My favorite story, the restoration of Peter.
Oh, it's so good. There's been things I've done where I feel like I felt the same as Peter would feel. Like, oh, I can't believe I did that.
Right.
I said I would never do that, and I did that, and I'm like, oh, it's amazing.
Yeah. So
Great one.
Yeah, not a hilarious one, but a couple of heartwarming ones and an axe head. So Segment 2, the VeggieTales Quiz.
Boom, 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 boom,
Boom,
boom, boom.
If you like to
talk,
Why do
to
we sound like
tomatoes.
weird robots singing it? Do robots sing that song?
Well, it's all digital, computer animated.
All right, Amber, we've got here a quiz with 10 questions that I've already taken. I'm not going to tell you how good or bad I
Ooh.
did. You just need to do better than me.
Love it.
In order to win this quiz.
Sweet.
Okay? And we're going to be playing for somebody.
I think we better play for Jill. This is Jill Larson.
Jill Larson.
I'm going to go ahead and use the last name because
There
we
you
do
go.
have multiple Jill fans.
Okay. Well, hopefully she doesn't start getting stalked because of you putting her name out there on the airwaves. But
Hopefully not.
all right, Amber, are you ready
Yeah.
for this How familiar are you with VeggieTales?
Well, I watched a lot in repetition in the late 90s. Well, yeah, real late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay.
So if it's there, it'll be my sweet spot.
Okay. Well, I think you have a chance.
Okay.
Okay. Question number 1. In Rack, Shack, and Benny,
Been there.
why are the 3 main characters dropped into the furnace? They didn't meet their quota of chocolate bunnies. They refused to bow down during the bunny song. They were disrespectful of Mr. Nezer. It was an accident.
The bunny. Ooh,
I love the bunny.
So I think it definitely has to do with a bunny. I think that in keeping with the real story, it probably has to do with bowing down. They didn't bow down during the bunny song.
Okay, Amber, let's see. Check the answer key. Correct. They
Yay.
refused to bow down during the bunny song. Okay. I got that one wrong. So you were ahead of me
Do
so
you think
far.
it was their quota?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question number 2. What biblical character is portrayed by a giant pickle? King Saul, David, Goliath, or Moses?
Oh, that's tricky because you'd think Larry would be the giant pickle, but he's a cucumber. So it's got to be Goliath because he's an actual giant.
Amber, that is correct. Dave and the Giant Pickle is the retelling of the story of David and Goliath.
I feel like he had some hair sticking out of him.
I'm sure it was gross.
Yeah.
Okay, Amber, you're doing really well so far.
Yay.
But here it starts to get a little bit tougher.
Okay.
Josh and the Big Wall is from the biblical story of Joshua in the battle of what walled city?
Ooh, this is very VeggieTale-ish.
Do you want me to give you the...
No, I can just give it to you. This was one of my, in my running for my top 5, Jericho.
Amber, you're doing so good. All right, I think we're getting a little bit later in the VeggieTales canon.
Okay.
Question number 4. King George and the Ducky is based on what story from the life of David? David's affair with Bathsheba. David hiding from King Saul. David's desire to build the temple. David battling his son Absalom.
Ooh, those are all good David stories. I know it's not David hiding from Saul because that was one of my favorites. It is David and his affair with Bathsheba.
Amber,
The bathtub ducky.
You are correct. It says here, King George desires the rubber ducky that belongs to one of his subjects.
Ooh, boy.
So, yeah, I mean, people, women, rubber duckies. It's a fair comparison. Question number 5. In Esther, the girl who became queen, okay, King Xerxes chooses his new wife through a talent competition. True or false?
Well, he does have a competition type thing. I'm going to say true.
Amber, that is correct. You are crushing this thing. I also got that one. Esther received 2 thumbs up for her singing talent.
Oh, really?
It doesn't say what she sang, but... All right. Let's see if you get this one.
Okay.
This is from 2002. Okay? The first
My sweet spot.
Your sweet spot, that's right. The first VeggieTales full-length movie was about what biblical character?
Ooh.
Joseph, Jesus, Jonah, or Jeremiah?
Oh, that's a tricky one. Jeremiah. Can you imagine?
That'd be so good. The weeping prophet.
Have to be onions. That makes you cry when you
Bob
cut
the
them.
Tomato, he's kind of a weeper.
Oh, he is kind of whiny. So, what was the first one?
Joseph.
Joseph. That would be a good one, but I don't feel like it was Joseph. I feel like it was Jonah. Jonah and the big fish.
Jonah, a VeggieTales movie, was released in 2002. Is that where we are the pirates who don't do anything?
I feel like that was out before that, but maybe.
Maybe
You'd
that,
think there'd be pirates on the water with the whale.
I don't know. Somebody let us know, please. Quickly. Question number 7. You've gotten them all right, Amber.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Thanks.
In the very first VeggieTales video, what story from the Bible was portrayed?
Whoa.
Samson and Delilah, Ruth and Boaz, Daniel in the lion's den, King Solomon the wise.
Oh, my goodness. None of those seem like the typical first story. Daniel in the lion's den seems like the most kid-friendly one, but I don't remember that happening in VeggieTales. Will you read it again? What are the choices?
Samson and Delilah. So he was very strong.
Yeah, but that's so, like, sexy.
Well, the first VeggieTale was a bit of a departure, and actually got an OMG on the steaminess meter,
no.
and so they really pulled it back. It's hard to find that one now, but Samson and Delilah, Ruth and Boaz, Daniel in the lion's den, King Solomon the wise.
I want to say something about Delilah having some melons, but I won't.
Don't do
This
that.
is a family-friendly show.
That's right.
I'm going to stick with Daniel in the lion's den, even though I don't recall it.
Amber, you are correct again.
Yay.
Larry the Cucumber played Daniel. The video is called "Where's God When I'm Scared."
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
But the big storyline was Junior Asparagus that was scared, not Daniel.
Well, I don't know the answer to that, Amber. But yes. Question number 8. The story of Moses and the Exodus was done in which of these styles? A Western, a musical, a mystery, or a crime drama?
Moses and the Exodus. What are the choices again?
Western, musical, mystery, crime drama.
Man, I know for sure they have a Western, so it might be that. I feel like they're all musicals, but oh man, would a Western work for that? I'm gonna go Western.
Amber,
I can picture Sheriff Larry with a badge.
the episode was called The Ballad of Little Joe. And what's this say? Mo and the Big Exit is also the sequel to an earlier episode called The Ballad of Little Joe. Oh, it's part 2.
Okay.
Gotcha. So you are correct. It was a Western.
All right.
Apparently they did 2 Westerns.
So Joe is Joseph and Mo is Moses.
Correct.
Aw, look at those guys.
I really think of everything.
I don't think I saw that. I just saw the copy of the DVD.
Well, it was enough for you.
It was.
Question number 9. The biblical story that Duke and the Pie War is based on comes from the book of Job. True or false? Duke and the Pie War. Is that VeggieTales' take on the book of Job?
I
True or
don't
false?
feel like what would Job, I mean, a lot of bad things happen to Job. Would he have just been hit by pies a lot as a vegetable, and that would be his curse God and die moment? I feel like that's too far of a stretch. I'm going to say false.
Amber, you are correct.
Yay.
Though I would love to see VeggieTales' take on the story of Job.
Yeah, really.
That would be awesome.
All your garden of children just wilts and dies, and your cows come and eat your, I don't know.
Everybody that you love.
Yeah, that's terrible.
It takes big bites out of you, and you're just scraping your bites with broken
Oh,
pottery.
no. We've got like the wilt of vegetable.
Okay. Question. So Duke and the Pie War is based on the book of Ruth.
Okay.
Ruth and Boaz. So, yeah. Okay, here we go. Final question. Amber, if you get this one right, you win.
Okay.
And if you get it wrong...
We tie?
Yeah, we tie.
Oh, boy. Lots of pressure.
The story of Flibberoloo may sound like it was written by Dr. Seuss.
Yes.
But it was actually a story based on what parable of Jesus? The prodigal son, the good Samaritan, the farmer, and the seeds.
Oh, man. That's tough. That's the only clue you get is Flibberoloo?
The story of Flibberoloo.
How do you spell it?
What? Flibberoo-O-L-O-O. Flibberoloo.
Dash. Oh.
How is that going to help you?
I just thought it might be like a play on words. Flib. Is flib like a lie? No, that's a fib.
A flib
Flibberoloo.
is a green substance that if you put it on the bottom of your shoes makes you jump very
Oh,
high.
I've seen that. So it's the sower.
That's
What was the other
flubber.
choices?
That was flubber. The prodigal son, the good Samaritan, the farmer, and the seeds.
Oh, man. The story of Flibberoloo. I feel like you're not going to say that. I mean, about the Good Samaritan. Was Flibberoloo the one that was going to town and got beat up? I can't imagine. Maybe it was. The sower, was the sower himself named Flibberoloo? I think it makes the most sense. The prodigal son was named Flibberoloo.
That's it? All right, well.
In my weird brain. So I'm going to say the prodigal son.
Incorrect.
Oh,
Amber.
no.
So think about it, Amber. So the
Think about
answer
it,
was the Good Samaritan.
Okay.
And what do we know about the Good Samaritan? The story that Jesus told, the Samaritan was hated and despised and was the bad guy of the story, and yet comes through and does the good thing. And so
he was flibbed?
So the flibber, like a flibber sounds like a bad, like, oh, look at that dumb old flibber.
That's you're saying that like it makes perfect sense. Oh, a flibber does sound like a bad guy. Look at that dumb old flibber.
Yeah.
Now that you put it that way. Oh, no.
All right. Well,
All right,
Amber,
so we
since
tied.
you tied with me, we're going to count that as a win for Jill.
Yay.
For Jill's sake, not yours.
We got a sticker for you, Jill. Just not secret message. DM.
Secret message us.
Slide into our DMs with your address. Mark didn't like that. That was too far on the steaming meter. I think you can do that without being bad.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Well, we want to thank you guys for joining us. We want to hear from you, so you can leave feedback about this episode. You can let us know your favorite Bible stories. You can let us know your take on our favorite Bible stories. You can leave that feedback on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at SegmentsCast, or you can send us an email at segmentscast@gmail.com, or you can go to the episode page, segments.libsyn.com. We will find your feedback, we promise.
We would like to thank Emma, who is no Flibberaloo, I tell you that right now. We want to thank Emma for the logo and graphics. If you want her to draw you a little something, she is, as always, taking commissions at of Hauntings on the Twitters.
And we want to thank our nephew, EDM Samurai, for the intro and outro music. You can find him on SoundCloud at EDM Samurai.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us for episode 31, Bible Stories.
Kind of like a little Sunday school lesson.
A little Sunday school lesson. I feel like everybody's probably very encouraged right now.
Yeah. Don't be a flibber.